Welcome to the Rogue L&D podcast, allowing you to meet some of the brilliant folk driving people performance and development forward in an informal and human way. My name's Tom Bailey, award-winning L&D leader and passionate maverick for all things development. Join me as I ask questions of some of the industry's most innovative and interesting people.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Rogue L&D podcast. I am delighted to welcome Laura Overton to the episode today. I'm very, very, very happy that Laura has been able to join me and agreed to join me. She might regret it later, but before we go any further, Laura, would you mind introducing yourself? I know you've got many, many years of experience and you've just launched a new book, The L&D Leader, but give us the take on your background.
Well, I guess most people know me as being a researcher into the field of learning and development, particularly interested in high-performing learning teams. So that's really where I've kind of built up my awareness of the industry, is by being an outside observer looking in. I've won awards for being an analyst in the field, and it was amazing to join up with Michelle Ockers in Australia and to kind of really reflect on the whole of 2 decades of research and to kind of summarize and really think through what does that mean for the future of learning and development. And that's where the L&D Leader book has come from. So yeah, constantly researching, constantly thinking about the future of our amazing industry, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. Now that's the first time we actually met, and it's a bit weird. It's a bit like meeting a cousin for the first time, because we do know a lot of the same people. But I met you at a lovely, it was like an intimate breakfast, cozy kind of breakfast that we had in North Sydney. It was you and the two Michelles, so Michelle Parry-Slater and Michelle Ockers. Michelle Parry-Slater had her book, and you had, or your latest book, with Michelle Ockers. And it was lovely to meet you. Now, the other thing that was surprising about meeting you was I never knew that you created Towards Maturity, which was one of my favourite agencies. And I think I mentioned this to you, and I just remembered that you asked me to do something which you haven't done. But we'll come on to that. But Towards Maturity was something I was a big fan of, because it brought data in, which is probably where you're talking about analysis and use of analysis. Do you want to tell us, or people who maybe don't know what Towards Maturity was, do you want to talk a little bit about what you did there? What that was?
Yeah, it was a community-driven research program. So it wasn't sponsored by one organization or another, but it was basically bringing together organizations who really cared about the same thing, which is about how can learning and development really drive better business impact. And that's really the heart of my work. I was somebody who was always used research, but I found that there was no real research into the field that I was interested in, which was about, how our actions delivered impact. There was a lot on how do you demonstrate return on investment on a program, but, how we as a function could be more valuable to an organization. And that's really the research question I had, and the whole community came behind it. At its heyday, there was something like 30 different sponsors, but I was also working with a lot of the people that you've had on your podcast, Tom, deconstructing their thinking, deconstructing their models, and saying, actually, if somebody was doing this, rather than following your program, what actions and behaviours would you see? And we used to constantly review this study in the light of what was the current thinking in terms of behaviours, and just assessing to the extent to which they actually impacted business and the business results of an organisation. So that was Towards Maturity. And it was always about journeying, Tom. It was always about not how do we get to the best place, but how does the person who's one step ahead in terms of their thinking help the person that is one step behind, so that as a community we can grow smarter together. And that was the real goal of Towards Maturity. And I ran that for 15 years.
Gosh. And I think I was at Nestle at the time. Someone was advocating heavily for it. And so I started to look into it. And from my perspective, it was the fact that, I'd love to get to ROI, by the way. But aside from the ROI debate, which is, endless and timeless and goes on forever, what I think I really liked about it was you used data points to exactly what you've just said, but to demonstrate to the business the impact that learning and development currently had or could have in the future if it did certain things. And I loved that, because I guess I was relatively new into my L&D career. And the idea being that I'm not just a facilitator, I do more than that. I don't just facilitate a sales workshop or whatever. And the idea that this is a real practice that can have a massive impact on what is pretty much every business's biggest asset. I just loved it because it was data and it was science sitting behind it. I just thought that was, phenomenal. And I'm not sure it's been topped. I'm not sure that someone has come out with something better as yet. So what happened with Towards Maturity?
Well, the reason I don't think anyone's come out with anything better in inverted commas is because at the time when I was asking these questions, I was able to really encourage participants to say, look, we need to take time out to reflect. We've got to reflect across the whole system. We can't just answer one question, two questions. So it was never, when I was gathering the data, a sense of like, take part in my survey, please, pretty please. It was always about, sometimes we've got to step back and reflect on our own work. And here are a series of questions. It was something like 45 minutes of really quite deep introspection. And you can't do that today. People have said, I no longer want to spend the time. And so what we get today are really brilliant snapshots into the system, but never a complete whole picture of the system, because participants aren't willing to spend that amount of time on themselves. I mean, for us Towards Maturity, what we did was say, look, we recognize that this is a deep process for you, and therefore we're going to send you back a deep, personalized report. All of it was free because it was run for the community, by the community. And so I think there are a couple of the things that why, it hasn't been topped. It's because the world doesn't allow it to be topped, doesn't allow that systemic view of really what's happening in organizations now. You know what? For over 15 years, the patterns just kept repeating themselves. It was run through a period of multiple disruptions in our industry. Disruptions of finance, disruptions of global catastrophes, disruptions of technology. And each year there was some new change process that was going on. Yet the patterns kept surfacing. And that's why I needed to step back from it myself to say, actually, there are some consistent patterns here, but we're still not necessarily achieving our goals. And I started to question myself, and I, as a researcher, and think, actually, is there a different way for me to look at this? And in order to do that, you have to let go. So, that's a little bit. But all of the reports are all still there up on my Learning Changemakers website. So they're accessible for anybody who wants to do the kind of deep dive that I've been doing over the last few years into the past in order to prepare us for the future.
Well, look, thank you so much for that work. I personally thought it was incredible and is incredible. Yeah, and obviously you've gone on to other things subsequent to that. But I guess that leads me to one of the big questions that I normally ask, which is, and I feel like we might have already touched this, but what's the real passion that you have in this industry?
We have touched on it, but I don't mind, because to be quite honest, it's the one reason why I went into the industry when I left university, is because I was super interested how people can help other people achieve their best results. And I think if it shifted in that original passion, it shifted in the first 2 years of my career. And it shifted to how can learning innovation help us as learning professionals drive better business impact? And that is something that has kind of driven me into crazy places, Tom. That one question of putting myself out there in a job, where I connected myself to the technology, which I did not understand, but I was inspired by, because I was allowing different parts of the organization to do things differently. And that kind of hook, that North Star, that passion has pretty much defined everything I have done in my entire career. How learning innovation can deliver better business impact. That's it.
Here's a question that I haven't prepared you for. What's the best learning innovation you've ever come across? And you can't say learning videos.
The innovation of the mind. It's genuinely, it's the innovation of the mind. I see some of the best examples in organizations that don't have access to the best technology. Because what they do is they hook onto, what does business impact look like for me? And they say, what have I got available to me? Not just in the toolkits, not just in the methodologies, the methods, the media, but it's also in terms of the environment. Where is change already happening? How can I hook onto that? Where can we create energy within that organization? And that to me kind of characterizes some of the best innovation that I have seen is the people who are willing to think outside of the boxes that they have been put into, even by their own organization, in all because they're passionate about making a change in the organization that they can see needs doing.
How's that affected, I wonder, with the growth and normalization of AI and AI usage? Is there any impact on that?
I think what I've seen is that those who think innovatively about how can I help others be equipped and ready are looking at the technology in a way that says, can I do something today that I couldn't do yesterday? And I think that's the difference. Those that are saying, how can I still drive learning value in the old-fashioned way because my organization wants me to deliver courses, wants me to deliver programs, wants me to deliver things, whether they're resources or, they want me to give them stuff that will help them be smarter. When we've boxed ourselves into that definition of a learning professional, then AI keeps us in that box. The innovation is all in the mind, Tom. That's what I've seen across all of the case studies that I've looked at, all of the data. It's how we choose to see the challenge ahead of us. It will determine how we choose to use the tools that are around us.
I think that's really interesting. And I'm totally going off the standard questions at the moment, but I think that's really interesting, Laura, because often I have conversations with people about marketing in our profession and, how do we position it? How do we think about the end user? Because marketing are excellent at thinking about the end user, to think about the consumer of something or the shopper, but whatever. If we had that same mentality and we started with a blank sheet, we probably wouldn't end up in the same place that most organizations end up at, with certain content being created because it's always been the way it's been created. That's quite interesting. And now that you're saying that, that's really getting me thinking around how do we as learning and development professionals, or even to an extent OD professionals, how do we think about the problems and the solutions and the things that are going to change the business for the better? How do we think about that versus the status quo?
And I think, I've been a marketeer in my past as well. And so the overlap between marketing and L&D is a really interesting one for me. But it's the strategic marketing thinking that actually makes the difference, because a strategic marketeer will be looking at what are the needs of our customers rather than what is my product that I can match to my 100%. Customers. That's the shift. That's ultimately the shift that I see in high-performing teams over the last 20 years. And also with great marketing, strategic marketing strategies, that it's not how do we flog something. I can sell, eyes to Eskimos. But it's, what do Eskimos actually need? It would be the thing, and how do I shift my product in order to meet a genuine need that has not been met yet, but incredibly valuable. Innovation is about using creativity to drive new value with the people that we care about. And that to me is one of the things that is so powerful in our industry. Learning professionals are so creative. When they let themselves free.
Yeah, the strategic marketeer versus the product marketeer, which is factories made all these units and you've got to find a way to house them somewhere with people. And it's the same with L&D. I think that's such a great point. Thank you. And that moves us nicely on to what's the best L&D that you've seen?
I judge on awards all the time. I've done research into high-performing learning teams. There's so many, we've got loads in our book. Please forgive me on this, but the one I kept coming back to was a story which was in the British libraries that I got involved with doing some research in this particular organisation, and they were rolling out a programme of learning into the whole of the library sector because ultimately they needed to change the behaviour of the frontline staff in the library. They needed to get library staff away from the very comfortable position behind the desk, stamping the books in and out, to in front of the desk, talking to the readers, and back to marketing, selling the idea of marketing. And it was such an interesting story because yes, they used technology, yes, they used tools to be able to get to people. But what they also did was they had a kind of cascade approach that went down through the libraries. They came in and they created a champion, a supervisor who went through the program of thinking differently, of applying the learning and taking their log and going out into the library. Like little challenges, go and talk to 4 readers, find out what it is that they're doing, shift your displays, come back, report, reflect. And the supervisor in each of the libraries went through that program, and then they helped the next people and the next tier of people go through. It was so integrated into the flow of work. It was so based on the type of work that people did every day. It could be fitted into 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It created communities around it so that people could share what they'd learnt through their logs and give opportunities to reflection. And it was such a powerful shift. And it was bloody 20 years ago, Tom. It was 20 years ago when I did this study into this library. And it was right across the UK, and there were so many lessons learned. And I think about the principles that we brought forward in the Learning L&D Leader book called the TRI Principles. They were tuning in to what was actually needed by frontline staff, looking at the context that they were in. They were kind of responding in a way that enabled people to do their job differently in the flow of their work. They were engaging peers as supervisors and creating community. And just the fact that they called us in to review it meant that they were constantly adapting it, improving it, changing it, the shape. But there were things that I hadn't done now that JD Dillon would definitely pick up on. And my research would pick on. They didn't bring the line managers in. They brought those peer supervisors in, but not the line managers, and they felt a little bit distant. I mean, it's not a perfect story, Tom, but it's a story of innovation because they saw the fact they needed to change behaviour, and they took what they had, the tools, the technology, the community, the environment in which to practice, and they created opportunities to do that. And so, that's the story I decided I wanted to share with you. 20 years ago. It's not the only story. I have others since, but that's what my mind kept coming back to.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And what library group was this? Was it?
It was across the UK.
Oh, okay.
So it adapted, those peer-to-peer supervisors adapted, so city people obviously would have a different environment in their libraries to someone running a rural library truck, and people connected together in communities to share their ideas that they had learned as a result of moving out and practicing live in that environment of their unique environment. So it was a UK-wide program, and it was a government initiative that I had been asked to go in and assess and evaluate what was going on there. I was excited by it then. Yeah. Still excited by it today.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. I love it. And it seems ironic to have libraries that are innovative. And I know that's me picking on poor libraries, but it is such a good idea. And I do like the central piece around the flow of work, and actually just a simple idea of getting people out behind that desk and actually interacting and providing a library service rather than a library process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Connecting with the customer. Back to our original conversation.
Yeah. What's your favourite hand gesture?
I use my hands a lot. And I think the one for me, I'm going to call it the shrinking column hand gesture. All right. So this is one I use a lot when I'm talking about our passion that we have for our industry. And it's, if you can imagine a column chart, I will often talk about the fact that our hands, if our hands are really far apart, our hands are the kind of desire we have to create business impact. But then they get a little bit closer when it comes down to those of us who are actually reporting any kind of business impact. And then they almost touch when it comes down to those who are measuring the kind of business impact that we have. And I use that hand gesture of that kind of shrinking column. In one sense, it's a sad gesture to use but to me, it's my favorite gesture because our hands are far apart. We all want to drive better business impact. It's not that any learning and development professional doesn't want to drive in business impact. It's just that we find it hard to do it. So it's become a favourite one that I use pretty much every time that I present, because I know the passion of the industry to really make a difference. And the difference is that we got a little bit of a way to go.
We do have a little bit of a way to go. I should explain, because people regularly tell me off about they're listening and they can't see what people are doing. So imagine a column. Laura's right hand is at the top, or left hand at the top, doesn't really matter. And then her other hand is at the bottom, and it's those hands then coming down to meet at different stages, or at different stages and then finally meeting in the middle. That's what you're explaining.
Oh, at the bottom.
No more complaints. Yeah.
At the bottom, my top hand is moving down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Towards the zero. And not many of us actually measure our impact in terms of what the difference it makes on the business.
No, but it goes back to where we started with, towards maturity. And ultimately, it's exactly what we should be talking about and we should be measuring is our impact. Otherwise, times like now where costs are starting to be looked at, P&C teams go, what are we spending on learning? Oh, reduce that, get rid of that. We don't need to recruit anyone, so we don't need L&D, because that's just an employee benefit, or compliance, obviously. Yeah, it's a great conversation that I would happily keep going on, which leads us on to your proudest moment. So we've had an excellent example from libraries, which thank you for that. But what's your proudest moment in the industry?
It was amazing when I won an award for the work that I've been doing with Towards Maturity. It was completely and utterly unexpected. But you just asking it to me again, I read a review of our book this morning that had been put together, actually from the Cracking L&D book club.
Yes.
They've been going through it. And it touched my heart, actually, and it reminded me of another really proud moment earlier this year in the UK. Well, it's two people have come up to me recently and said, actually, I'm brand new in learning and development, but I didn't think your book would be for me because it's called the L&D Leader, but you've given me the confidence and the courage to really want to make a difference in the world. And you've given me simple language to be able to go out there and shift the world. And I was like, my goodness, that is really heartwarming. I felt so pleased with the fact that actually our book was about aspiring leaders, those who want to step into making change, not just about those who are managing big departments. You know, it's a lead for those types of people because they got to let go of a lot more. But those new leaders coming through, those who are going to change the world, we can actually help them have the courage and the belief that they might be able to do that. It's so exciting. Actually, it's better than any award on any gathering dust on a bookshelf somewhere.
Yes, I'd say your awards are very, very, very important and incredibly great. It's a wonderful recognition for the work that you've done. But it's a reminder, actually, if I kind of take the adverse of what you've just said, it's a reminder for folks to actually just say thanks and to pass on those. You know, I shared something with you earlier about a guy. I'm not going to say it because everyone always tells me off for saying the same thing. But it's those moments of people who've had a big impact on us and on our career. And it doesn't matter how small it is. We're all human beings. So we really appreciate it if someone acknowledges it. I think it's great. And the Cracking L&D team they're the best. So
they're cracking.
They are. For me, they're modelling what our community should be. And obviously, yes, it's for A and Z specifically. But what they do is it's down to earth. It's approachable. And I was talking to Darren about it, or it might have been Kylie, but I was talking to them about it, and they were saying it didn't use this word. They didn't say egalitarian, but they said it is. There's no levels. There's no hierarchy. Everyone's the same. I love that about it. You could be like your first job in L&D as a coordinator, and you're the same pegging as someone who's 20 years in, written 4 books, got international awards. That's fine because we're all learning in this wonderful industry. Anyway,
there are great ones over on this side of the globe as well. There's and L&D Shakers who run very similar guidelines.
Same ethos. We do have a little bit of Planet Shakers. The problem is, being in Oz, we do get stuck on the time zone. So it's quite hard to make stuff. All right, from the very serious and heartwarming to the less so, what's the best celebrity story that you have, or someone you've met, or, I don't know, someone you tripped up, I don't know, whatever?
I wish I moved in those circles. I think the closest I can get, the head office of the organisation I worked for originally was over in Dublin. So I used to fly backwards and forwards from London on Aer Lingus quite a lot at a time when you were actually allowed to go in business class. And I once sat next to Van Morrison.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
It was pretty good, apart from he was the moodiest person I've ever seen. The only thing I heard him say was, I have orange juice. And that was it. He didn't even say thank you. He didn't even say thank you to the amazing hostess or whatever. He didn't look up. He just had his head down the whole time.
Manners cost nothing. Van Morrison, that's pretty good. I think Aer Lingus have done away with business class now, haven't they, maybe?
I think so, probably because their customers are so rude.
This is true, yeah. I mean, that beats me lining up for EasyJet flight with Bob Geldof in front of me. But I don't think he was particularly rude. He was very much trying to be incognito, so I didn't say anything to him. You know when people are like, just please leave me alone. He was giving that vibe. And you weren't starstruck. You weren't kind of like, oh. Apart from thinking this guy was quite rude.
No, I was sitting right next to him. I couldn't really keep looking around.
Take a picture. Because I don't know when this was. Maybe it was pre-smartphone. So you had to get a digital camera out.
Right, why don't you? But yes, it was.
Very good. All right. Okay. Well, look, what's something that not many people know about you?
Most people know of me of my research. I don't think very many people know that actually before that research, I spent 15 years working in the edtech industry, working with organizations, working with clients, heading up marketing teams and using research to try and help people to kind of really help learning be sticky. So I don't think they know that about me. And I don't think they probably know that actually I chose to leave that company when it was bought by another, because I was working in the organisation that actually defined what e-learning was. I was so passionate about this, Tom. I cannot even tell you. E-learning was not about computer-based training. It was not about ClickNext. It was about immediacy, learning in the flow, personalisation, and no one was ready for it. So when our organisation was bought by another, I chose to take voluntary redundancy because I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to relive the last 6 years while everyone else catches up with this amazing idea. And I didn't know where I was going to be going. But I chose to take redundancy and try to decide what I was interested in. And I was still interested in learning, innovation and business impact. And it was a real liminal space for me. I'd let go, but I had no idea what I was going to be moving into. And I don't think people know that about me. I think they think that, oh, Laura's always got this kind of very strong pathway ahead of her. But I didn't. I had a liminal space in front of me, a space where I had no definition of who I was. That actually created in me a real sense of freedom at that particular point of time. And I realised at the time there wasn't the research when I was in my job that I needed to have a conversation about the things that mattered. And I thought, oh, you know what, I'm just going to explore for a bit. And I just did this little piece of research I did with 16 organisations. And I said, you know what, can we also talk to your learners as well? I had 16 organisations, 2,000 learners. No one had done research with learners. But it was a curiosity project. That's how I started in this space. It was having a liminal space and following my own curiosity, following my own North Star, with no intention to ever start a research company. And I don't think people realise that actually often our opportunities come to us when we're not looking.
Absolutely. Sliding door moments, for sure. Yeah. I want to ask you about research, particular analysis. But before I do, I also wanted to just catch this moment. How do you switch off and how do you take downtime? Because you've mentioned a few times, I mean, how busy you are. You've alluded to it. You haven't actually mentioned it. You've literally just come out with this incredible book with Michelle Ockers that you've written. I know all the work that you've done in research. How do you switch off?
Normally with a crappy box set or a crappy book, which is not particularly, you interview Don Taylor and he'll be talking about the real deep stuff that he does, and I'm like, oh.
Absolutely.
My mind is always on. If you talk to Michelle, Lockers, she will say I'm the most divergent thinker she knows, which is why I work with Michelle, because she pulls me in. But I kind of like that. I kind of like being at a garden, kind of like a botanical garden, and seeing the flowers grow and seeing the analogies in my mind. This amazing world of work that we're in. It gives me a bit of energy. It sparks if I'm struggling with something. If I go to a completely different place, it might give me a hint of why something is happening or isn't happening when I just look at the world through different lenses. So I kind of like that, but it always tends to bring me back to this of L&D and how we can help other people be equipped and ready. So yeah, I am that really boring person.
It's not boring. That's good. I mean, it's not the most erudite to say box sets and binge, but I love the image of a botanical garden, though. That's quite beautiful in terms of the L&D ecosystem. Creating a botanical garden of the rich flora and fauna that grows within that. I think that's a wonderful example. That's very nice. Thank you for that.
We could have an entire hour's conversation around that analogy, but we won't.
we haven't got time. Before I ask my penultimate question, tell me a little bit about, because research and analysis is not something that L&D is synonymous for. What is it that we should be doing as L&D professionals around research and around analysis of the work we do and the industry and the business, etc.?
I know that you asked this question of other people is one thing you didn't learn.
I'm going to ask you that. Yeah, you can answer that as well.
I'm going to come to that. I'm just going to jump in on that because I didn't learn how to be an analyst. I didn't learn how to do research. I went to university and I was very lucky to do maths and psychology at university, but I wanted out because I wanted to make an impact in the world. I wanted to achieve things in the world. I didn't want to be writing blooming academic papers. So I didn't spend ages doing masters and PhDs and things like that. So when I tumbled into this world of research, I was learning it on the fly. I was learning how to explore in a way that had credibility for the people I cared about. I didn't care at the time for academics. I cared for the learning and development community. And I wanted to create something that was rich and credible and trustworthy for that community. And so I didn't learn everything that you had to, but what I learned when it came down to doing analysis and data is I learned the principles. I learned the principles of how to step back, how to be independent. I learned how to be friends with people who could do really good data analysis. I was, to call it a more modern term, I was more a kind of civilian analysis. I was the person who brought the subject matter expert to ask the questions that needed to be asked so that those that could do the statistics could test out those questions. I was the person who brought judgment to the data. I could see in a line of questions, I think that is wrong. There's either something wrong in the data set here or there's something that's really we have to dig into. We can't just report that number because that's not resonating with what I'm seeing and feeling and historically and now in the industry. And they were the things that I learned on the job. And ironically, that kind of process, I kind of called it a dynamic discovery. 15 years looking at the same question with a bigger and bigger community, exploring that dynamically. That wasn't written up in the academic research and data analysis textbooks. It's something that I created because of that one passion about how does learning innovation deliver business impact, all beyond that journey, rather than those who follow one analyst versus the other. So that's how I learned, and I think it was based on curiosity. And I don't think that is linked down to just a researcher. I think anybody can be curious. Anyone can ask the question. Anyone can say, well, how can I have credibility with the data that I'm bringing? How do I question it? How do I break it before somebody else breaks it? These aren't analyst learnings that I've had. These are just common sense, critical thinking, wanting to make a difference, wanting my data to be clean enough that other people can trust it to make the decisions that will change their lives and the lives of people around them. And I think it was that passion that led me to work with the right people to make sure that happens, rather than for me to say, I have to become a data analyst in order to be able to achieve this. I have to care about the results enough to question my own data. And that's, I think, the difference. And that's the thing that I didn't learn through school. Ironically, I've gone back to school and I'm working on a PhD. I've gone back to academia because I'm looking at still this question. And I'm thinking, can academic thinking give us some insight into how we can drive better business impact? But that's after 30 years, Tom.
Well, I did see that you were at University of Middlesex, and I didn't go to the University of Middlesex, but I had a friend who went there who invited me. And the only time I've ever been to the University of Middlesex, it was a night out, and they had Timmy Mallet and Dr. Carl Kennedy from Neighbours. It wasn't a night to remember, although I have remembered it because it was so random.
Merging of cultures, something in Britain and something in Australia. It's kind of like bringing the two worlds together for you.
Although I doubt most people would know who Carl Kennedy is, because it's one of those weird things where it's bigger in the UK than Neighbours was always bigger in the UK than it was in Oz. Anyway, so where are you doing a PhD, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm at Middlesex.
Back at Middlesex, okay.
And I'm looking back on my work to look at the futures. It's on hold at the moment because I stopped to write the L&D Leader, which is actually a result of the thinking that had been put into the PhD. But again, because I wanted to say, does my thinking make sense in the world of work before is it assessed by academics? So I did put the process on hold for a moment. So the closest you've got to my thesis is the L&D Leader at the moment. But my plan is to come back and to revisit it because I need to keep stretching. I need to keep challenging myself in order to understand this world of work, because that difference, those columns, they're still getting too close in the sense of our desire to make an impact is even more important now. And we're hungry to be able to work out how to do that. And it isn't just about following a model.
L&D Leader, wonderful book. Where can people get it? Where's the best price people can achieve to successfully get the book and delivered within 6 months, let's say?
The best price is on the Kogan Page website because there's discounts there for them, and to keep an eye out for the discounts because at the moment it's 25%. Sometimes it goes up to 40%, but you do have to wait a while if you're down in Oz. But there are other booksellers that are selling it all over, so you might be able to get it quicker.
Yeah, you probably get it in Amazon or something a bit quicker. But Kogan, the original Kogan Page website.
Original Kogan Page, absolutely.
Great. And what's one piece of advice, or let's say your favourite piece of advice that you would love to give to aspiring L&D folk or established L&D folk?
We talk about it in the book. I want people to be bold, business aware, be open-minded, looking outside in order to be able to come back to that business problem. L, leading and learning, exploring, experimenting with yourselves as well as with others, and D, being deliberate. So being smart, bold in their world of work, because I think that will enable us to hold our job title lightly, but our vision and purpose, keeping it always there in front of us. And I think that's going to be really important for us for the future, bold thinking, innovative thinking, letting go of our job title and hanging on to our vision.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Thank you. And if people want to connect with you, I guess you're not averse to that. LinkedIn, is that the place to go? Oh, you are averse to it. Please don't get into
the hermit that I am. No, I love, please, particularly if you like something or if you don't like something. Obviously, if you don't like something, DM me on LinkedIn. If you like something, now tell the world. No, so LinkedIn is the place. But also Learning Changemakers is my website, and that's where I do my writing. And I share the resources from the past and also my thinking about the future. So that's learningchangemakers.com.
Perfect. Excellent. I'll put it in the show notes. Anyone can find that. Definitely worth subscribing. Thank you so much, Laura, for your time. It's been wonderful to get to know you a little bit better and obviously hear about the recent release of the book and a little bit about your history. So thank you so much for your time and your honesty and being able to share with us.
Oh, you know what? I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to our guest and to you for listening. If you want to boost the impact of your organisation's people development practices, I'd love to connect. You can find me at thomasbailey.co. Alternatively, you can look me up on LinkedIn.